Good morning, Morai V'Rabotai. We are continuing on Masechet Makkot, and we are on Daf Dalit, Amud Bet, 7 lines up from the beginning of the white lines. Today's Amud is being learned. L'schut refuah shelema, Rachel Simcha bat Nahid, Yael bat Loren, Esther Shoshana, and for the Hatzalah of Arvi Netanel ben Sonia. Hashem shall have Rachmanut on him and reverse his decree. Be'ezrat Hashem, Amen. So we started a Mishnah on Dalit, Amud Aleph, on the bottom of the Amud, back to our topic of Edim Zomemim, of what happens if you have two transgressions within one offense of the Edim Zomemim. Me'idim anu be'ish peloni shchayav lechavero 200 zuz. If a person, a group of Edim, testify against a person that owes 200 zuz to his friend, and they end up being proven wrong that they had falsified a testimony, so what has happened? So pause the moment. Two things have happened. A, they transgressed of not testifying falsely, right? And they also now are Edim Zomemim, they have to be subject to Vasitem lo kashe zamam lasot le'achiv. So therefore Rabbi Meir says, we do both. We punish them from both ends of the deal. They pay the 200 because of Vasitem lo kashe zamam lasot le'achiv. They also get lashes because they transgressed testifying falsely. Okay? Chachamim said no. En adam lokeu meshalem. If you meshalem, if you pay, you don't get lashes. Only one. And same was when the Edim Zomemim come and say, well, Reuben is chayav malkut. We testify that this guy needs to get a set of lashes. And they're proven wrong, they become Edim Zomemim. So Rabbi Meir says, well, 2 sets of lashes it is. 80 lashes, because one they get for Vasitem lo kasher zamam lasod la'achiv, because of edir, and one is because they testified falsely. 2 sets of, and Chachamim say no, only one. Now we went through this in the Gemara methodically so far, that we understand why it is that Rabbanan say only one punishment. Because the general rule of thumb is a person is not going to get 2 punishments, right? We darshan this from a pasuk, Keder rish'ato, mishum rish'a achat ata mechayevo, ve'i ata mechayevo, mishum shte rish'iyot. That's the drasha of the Gemara all over Shas, and therefore the Gemara takes this as a face value that the Shita of Chachamim is pashut. What's the Shita of Rabbi Meir? Where else do you find that you get punishment of 2 ends of the deal? You are also paying and also absorbing the lashes. So the Gemara said in the name of Ula, I'm just going to quickly do a quick chazara. The Gemara said in the name of Ula, you know where Rabbi Meir found this? In Motzi Shemra. Motzi Shemra, when a chatan comes to the father-in-law the day after the chatuna and says, your daughter was not a betulah. And I investigated and I found out that within the year that we were engaged meaning after Kiddushin, which she is a Eshet Ish, in the midst of the period of Kiddushin, she had done this and therefore she's Chayav Mita. Right? And then he's found to be falsified. Then the Torah says, V'anshu oto, you punish him, v'yiseru oto, he gets lashes, and he also pays the ma'akesef. So he gets lashes, he pays money. We have a precedent for someone that gets lashes and also pays money. We learn it from here. The Gemara said, well, but it has its own novelty, Motzi Shemra, which over here he may not have it. There are those who learn this Ula, said the Gemara, Ika dematin la lahad Ula, ahad etanya, Lo totiru mimenu ad boker. By Korban Pesach, it says, don't leave over anything of the Korban on the night of Pesach until the morning of Pesach. You have to eat it all up. And if you did leave over, you burn it, which is an aseh, a positive mitzvah of burning on a lo taseh. Don't do it, but if it happened, burn it, right? And says the Gemara, over there it's machloket Tanaim. It's machloket Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yehuda, right? So says the Gemara, Lo totiru mimenu ad boker, va'anotar mimenu ad boker ba'esh tisrofu, ba'katuv liten aseh achar lo taseh. The Torah is coming to teach you, lomar she'en lo kin alav. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, from here you see that you don't get lashes on leaving over Korban Pesach. Why? Because the general rule of thumb is, in lav hanitak laseh. There are two different types of lavim. There are lavim that the Torah says don't do it. And if you don't do it, you get the invitation to a very warm place, and that's it. That's the end of the day. And then there are the lavim in the Torah that the Torah says don't do it. If you did it, fix it like this. That's a lav hanitak laseh. That the tikkun of it is mentioned by another act, a positive act, in the Torah. Over here, if you left over, you burn it. So lav hanitak laseh, you don't get malkut alav, says Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Akiva says, hey, why do you need that altogether? Over here, you don't need any additional reason why you don't get malkut, because you have an underlying factor that makes you patur from getting malkut. What is that factor? Says Rabbi Akiva, lo min Hashem hu, ela mishum da'ava le'elav she'en bo ma'aseh. Like Rambam says in his Klalim in the beginning of Yad HaChazakah, that you don't get malkut on a lav she'en bo ma'aseh. If you didn't do anything, we don't give you malkut. And here, what did he do? The person that left over Korban Pesach, he just sat there and watched the Korban Pesach until the morning, right? Watching his and it became morning, he was over, he didn't do anything. He just sit by and you're over on Lo totiru mimenu ad boker. V'cholav she'en bo ma'aseh en lo kin alav. That's the klal. So now the Gemara says, now we start this.
Isn't there another principle when you do two averas b'vasachar, you only get the...
Yeah, so we mentioned this last time, a very good question, that we generally speaking say, kim lebed rabba mine, or kam lebed rabba mine. If you have two onashim, you only get the more severe of the two, and we drop the other one. And we spoke about the fact that the Rishonim compare this sugya and that, and differentiate that perhaps is talking about death penalty and another punishment, and so on and so forth. So that becomes it's a very good question, involved question with the Rishonim over here, the Ritba and others that discuss what exactly the parameters of each one of these two conceptual items in the Gemara are. Where do we say kam lebed rabba mine, and where do we say en adam lokeu meshalim, right? But be as it may, here we're saying something even more profound. Say if you have a lav she'en bo ma'aseh, it's not even subject to malkut. It's not a matter that, well, we have malkut, we have payment, which one do we? We don't even have malkut when there is lav she'en bo ma'aseh. You didn't do anything, right? And that's Rabbi Akiva. The Gemara says, wait a second. If you have a machloket between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Yehuda has to drop this basic tenet of the shas all over of lav she'en bo ma'aseh, that means, and he has to come on to a new reason, right? Because Rabbi Yehuda came on to a new reason why you don't get malkut over here. So Rabbi Yehuda said, because it's a lav hanitak laseh, it's a positive after negative. So Gemara says, wait a second, that means that Rabbi Yehuda does not agree with the basic tenet that the person does not get lashes on lav she'en bo ma'aseh. That means Rabbi Yehuda would tell you that by Pesach, if it wasn't lav hanitak laseh, if you didn't have the positive mitzvah of burning it in the morning, just for leaving it over to the morning, you would get lashes. Rabbi Akiva says no, because it's lav she'en bo ma'aseh. You don't have any action, you just transgress it by sitting by and watching. And Rabbi Yehuda says the reason you don't get lashes is because the Torah fixed it with an asay. So when the Torah fixes it, I'm not going to get lashes for something that the Torah gave a fix. But from this machloket, you see that Rabbi Yehuda would tell you that you would get lashes on lav she'en bo maaseh. Even though that I didn't do anything, I still will get lashes. Right? Now, where does Rabbi Yehuda get this from? Now you see how we have this. We started the Amud by questioning how did Rabbi Meir know that Edim Zomemim get lashes even though that they did nothing, right? And we said that he learned it from Motzi Shemra. And now we say the same Ula on another Isur that doesn't have action. What is that? Pesach, Korban Pesach. Even though that by Korban Pesach I didn't do anything, I just sat by and removed myself from the scene, and that piece of meat now became notar, and hence I transgressed the Isur of Lo Totiru Mimenu Ad Boker, and I still would get lashes according to Rabbi Yehuda. Right? So now you have not just Rabbi Meir by Edim Zomemim, who didn't do anything, just talked. Now we have also Rabbi Yehuda, who seems to hold, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda never agree with each other, but it seems to be that there's one concept that they're in agreement that even though that I did nothing, I still would get lashes. Rabbi Meir holds it by Edim Zomemim, by our Sugya, that even though that they did nothing, they just spoke, right? That's not a maaseh. They still get lashes. And Rabbi Yehuda over here by Korban Pesach says the same thing, that even though that you did mamash nothing, you just sat by and left the Korban Pesach until morning, you still get lashes. Where does he know that from? So here is where Ula steps in again. So says the Gemara, Amar Ula, 8 lines up from the wide lines. Amar Ula, Gamar mi motzi shemra. Ma motzi shemra lav she'en bo maaseh. Just like motzi shemra has no action involved in it, and lokin alav. And still, by motzi shemra, the man that comes after the day after the wedding and says she was now a virgin, and therefore he's going to be punished if he's found to be guilty and falsified the testimony. Every love that does, even if it doesn't involve any maaseh, any action, you still get lashes on it, says the Gemara. So says the Gemara, says, no, you can't learn from Motzi Shemra. Now here the Gemara is going to, I need your attention and your brains for 2 minutes, because you got to go back and forth to see if you could learn from this. Every time that the Gemara wants to learn from another case, they have to be similar. If I find a case in the Torah that has all kinds of unique stringencies, the Gemara usually would say you can't learn anything from this, because this case has a lot of stringencies. So maybe because he has all these other unique stringencies, he has also this stringency. So you can learn from this, the chumrah, from the stringency of the case to other cases, right? And that's exactly what the Gemara is going to do. The Gemara says, you cannot possibly learn from this case because Motzi Shemra has all kinds of stringencies. For instance, Ma'ale Motzi Shemra sheken lokeu meshalem. Nowhere in the Torah you find that someone gets lashes and also pays. Motzi Shemra, we punish him from all sides. He gets the lashes and he pays, like the anshu oto, the iseru oto. He gets it from all sides. So therefore, maybe because it's a very stringent case, we can't learn from Motzi Shemra to the case of the case of Korban Pesach being notar. Ela Amar Resh Lakish, so Resh Lakish disagrees with Ula. He says, no, you don't learn it from Motzi Shemra. You know where you learn it from? Says the Gemara, Gamar Edim Zomemim. He learned it from Edim Zomemim, because Edim Zomemim is another example of a case that you didn't have any action, you just talked. There's no action, and yet you get punished for it. Ma Edim Zomemim, Lav shein bo maaseh lokin alav, first wide line. Just like by edim zomemim is a lav shein bo maaseh, there's no action, it's just speech. Still lokin alav, still you get lashes, just like we discussed by meidin alu shehu ben gerusha ben chalutza, right? We had this whole thing of sometimes you get lashes for edim zomemi. Of kol lav shein bo maaseh lokin alav. Rabbi Yehuda said, I see a principle from here that any lav shein bo maaseh you could get lashes on. Any lav. You don't need to have actions for a lav to require or to deserve lashes. So says the Gemara, no, you can't, because edim zomemim also has its own unique stringencies. You see that the Torah sets it apart from all the other parashiot of the Torah with stringencies that don't exist anywhere else. So therefore, you can't learn from it in any other scenario. Edim zomemim sheken en tzrichim hatra'ah, all over the Torah. If you want to punish someone, you have to give them hatra'ah, right? En onshin elaim ken mazhirin, right? Well, that's for the Torah itself giving hatra'ah. But if you don't give hatra'ah to a person, you don't warn them, you can't punish them. But here, by edim zomemim, did anyone warn them? No, they just popped up. They say we saw this, and then they were disproven, done, and still they get the punishment. So it's a very unique case that you punish someone without warning. So therefore, just like you have this stringency, unique stringency, that you punish them without warning, maybe that's why they also get punished without action. Just with speech alone, they get punished. But you can't learn that as a principle for all over Shas or over Torah, that you would punish anyone without action. Maybe you can't punish anyone with action. Edim Zomem. Edim Zomem is different. You have all kinds of strange punishments for them which are not due to anyone else, right? For instance, Edim Zomemim also get punished without hatra'ah. That's what the Gemara is saying. So says the Gemara. So therefore, Motzi Shem Ra yochiach. The Gemara says no, but you can learn that aspect from Motzi Shem Ra, right? Motzi Shem Ra, it's not punished without hatra'ah. So you see, this punishment with hatra'ah is not a big deal, right? You still punish someone without action, even though that this aspect doesn't exist. In other words, what the Gemara is now doing is what the Gemara does all over Shas, and it's good for you once to get used to this concept. The Gemara brings two cases that they have the same halacha, even though that the Gemara originally was uncomfortable using them as a principle because each one of them had a bump, right? And the Gemara says, well, this one doesn't have this bump, and this one doesn't have this bump. So Hasad Shaveh Shvayim Yochiach, the common denominator should be the principle. Both of these, in our case, being Motzi Shem Ra, which gets punished without action, and Edim Zomemim, who also get punished without action, right? So you have a common denominator running through them, even though that each one has their own bump. Each one has their own unique stringency that if it was the only case in discussion, we would say we throw it out of court because it has unique stringencies. The Gemara says, well, the unique stringency of this is not shared by this one, and the unique stringency of this is not shared by this one. So why can't you just put these together and say, well, when I look at this too, Edim Zomemim and Motzi Shem Ra, what I see from it is that I could punish someone without action. That speech alone or just leaving, it's punishable. Why can't I do that? Right? That's the question. Meaning the Gemara is suggesting that Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, that they learn that you could punish someone without action, they are learning it from here. So says the Gemara, let's now just go through it, reading what we explained outside already. This, the raya of this is not like that, and that's not like this. They're two different cases with different bumps. You should learn, you should be able to learn from their common denominator running through them that lav shem bo maaseh v'lo kin alav. What's the common denominator? They're lav shem bo maaseh. There's no action in motzi shem ra. There's no action in edim zomemin, and still they get punished. And we should be able to apply that anywhere else in Chumash, also if you have a lav shem bo maaseh, lo kin alav. You should be able to learn that without action even you should get lashes. Of kol lav shem bo maaseh lo kin alav. The Gemara says, wait a second, not too fast. Ma la'asad shavesh bahen shken kenas. But even I found a massive bump in the common denominator. What are you saying? You're telling me that these two cases have a common denominator. Guess what else they have in common? If you remember last page in the Gemara, we said edim zomemin is what? Kenas. That means the guy didn't inflict any pain yet. We didn't act upon the edut, the testimony of the first group of edim, and still we make them pay. They didn't make anyone pay. They wanted to make him pay, and we make them pay already. That's kenas, said the Gemara. Right? And of course, by Motzi Shemra, we said it's kenas, with kansu, right? That's for sure kenas. It's a me'al kesef, it's a flat rate for everyone, not depending on their status and their wealth and their fame and how defaming affected the fact. Doesn't make a difference. Me'al kesef, across the board, that's kenas, that's a fine. So therefore, if something is not mammon, we always say like mammon means, payment, a monetary payment, which is damages, versus kenas, which is a fine. So if both of these are kenas, you cannot learn a monetary payment of damages from a kenas, from a fine. Fine is a chidush. Kenas is a chidush. We don't learn anything from a kenas. If the Torah said you get this fine, you get this fine. If it didn't say, you cannot learn anything from a kenas. So therefore, the Torah says, I found this massive bump in the common denominator. Your two cases are both kenas. You can't learn from it to anywhere else. That's like the biggest question. The elephant in the room. Says the Gemara, halokasha. Says that's not the question. Why? Because Rabbi Yehuda lo savar like Rabbi Akiva. You remember who said that this is kenas? By our case, Rabbi Akiva was the one that said it's kenas. That edim zomim is a kenas. We're talking about Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold like Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yehuda lo savar like Rabbi Akiva, and therefore it's not a kenas, one of them. So I just removed your big bump in the common denominator. Says the Gemara, no, I have another kasha. But each one of them has a bump. Each one of them has a kasha. The Gemara says that's not a bump at all. That's not a question. Rabbi Yehuda tzad chamur lo parich. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda is not bothered by the fact that each one of the cases with the common denominator has their own novelty of astringency. So long as they don't share the same bump, it's not in the same inyan, we're good with it. So what? This has a stringency of its own, that has a stringency. As long as there's no kasha, there's no question on the common denominator, you could say the common denominator, learn from the common denominator, and move on. Now, so that's the end of this. Now, we're going to deal with the last piece of the Mishnah. You remember the last piece of the Mishnah was a case of getting 80 lashes. That means the group of Edim come to the Beit Din. They say, Reuben is chayav to get a set of malkut. We saw it. We saw that he became chayav in a different Beit Din to get lashes. And now he ran away. So we're holding him down here. And then they turn out to be falsified. So Rabbi Meir said, you know what we do with them? You give them 80 lashes. One, because of kasher zamam. They were trying to give lashes to this guy, so they get his lashes. And secondly, because they falsified edut, sheker. So it says, the Gemara, Rabbanan who disagree with this, Rabbanan said at the end of the last line of the Mishnah was, Chachamim omrim, last line of the Amud in Tarad Amud Aleph, Chachamim omrim en lokin ela arbaim. They only get 40 lashes. That's it. So here says the Gemara, v'Rabbanan haylo ta'aneh beracha et shaker ma'idar shiba. In other words, Rabbi Meir is saying good. Rabbi Meir says the Torah says a pasuk that seems to be not needed. The Torah says lo ta'aneh beracha et shaker. Don't falsify testimony against your friend. Why do you need that pasuk? Well, by zomimim, the Torah says, if you found to be lying, that we already know. Why in the world do I need lo ta'aneh b'ra'acha et shakir? So it says the Gemara, according to Rabbi Meir, we need it because lasitem kasher zamam is one set of lashes, lo ta'aneh b'ra'acha is second set of lashes. According to Chachamim, that's it. Why do you need it? So it says the Gemara like this. How mi ba'ileh la'azhara le'edim zomimim. That's needed for azhara for edim zomim, because as we mentioned 2 minutes ago, we have a law of en unshin ela imken mazhirin. You cannot punish in the Torah. The Torah itself would not punish if there is no azhara, no warning prior to the punishment mentioned in the Torah itself. So if the Torah tells me v'asitem lo kasher zamam la'asod la'achiv, that we punish the edim zomimim, where did you tell me not to be edim zomimim? Where? There's nowhere to be found, by the way, right? It's, explicitly. It's not explicitly mentioned. It just says, if you found edim zomimim, we do to them what they wanted to do. Where did you tell me not to be edim zomimim? So says the Gemara, Chachamim say, lo ta'aneh b'ra'acha et shakir. Do not falsify testimony against it. But that's the azara. So that's why we need it. So therefore, you can't learn from it a second set of lashes. We need it for azara. It's absolutely needed. Without this pasuk, edim zomim can't even be punished. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Meir. The Gemara says, wait a second, that's a bomb kasha on Rabbi Meir. Rabbanan are correct. We need azhara. So where does Rabbi Meir, who says you give him 2 sets of lashes, where does he have azhara? Taka is a good question. Where is the azhara of edim zomimim in the Chumash, according to Rabbi Meir? The Gemara says, I'll find you a clear hint to it in a different place. Rabbi Meir azhara edim zomim menale. How does he see it? Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, Nafkale. He learns it from V'hanish arim hishmeu ve'irau. When you punish edim zomimim and you kill them, the pasuk in that context says, Hanish arim, the remaining people, the ones watching this, yishmeu ve'irau, they should hear this and they should be fearful. Ve'lo yosifu od, and they will not ever do this themselves. Oh, you see, from the second case of edim zomimim in history and on, you always publicize it, and therefore, ve'lo yosifu, don't do it. They should not do it. That by itself is your azhara. The Torah says, lo yosifu, no one should be doing like this edim zomimim. So that's the Torah saying to everyone in the history line of Klal Yisrael, don't you dare doing this. And that's your azhara right there and then.
Is that only referring to death sentence?
No, it's in the parasha of edim zomimim. It happens to be that you have this in 4. This is really a Gemara in Sanhedrin Daf Peichet, I think it is. The Gemara says 4 different people who we publicize it. Right? There is edim zomimim. There is Mesitu Madiach, there is Zaken Mamre. In all these cases, we make them publicized. And the Gemara there has a whole question whether you wait until Regalim, that everyone comes to Yerushalayim, and you do it publicly in front of the entire Klal Yisrael. The Gemara says, no, that's not. So the Gemara says, no, after we kill them, then we publicize it, right? We make sure everybody knows what happened to these people. So it's said in the Parasha of Edim Zomimim, and therefore you see, it's not just for what they did wrong is not that they wanted to kill this person. What they did wrong is they falsified testimony against the brother. That's Edim Zomimim, right? Says the Gemara, Rabbanan haimi baile. Rabbanan say, no. We need that pasuk of Yishmeu ve'irau. La'achraza. This is the whole Gemara that we just mentioned in Sanhedrin, that you need to make hachraza, you need to make announcements in the entire Klal Yisrael of what happened with Edim Zomimim. And that's a mitzvah from the Torah. Where do you learn from? From this pasuk. V'chol Yisrael yishmeu ve'irau. The entire assembly of Klal Yisrael should hear and should be fearful not to do this. So you can't use that for a love, says Gemara. Gemara says, no, that's not a problem. Rabbi Meir, hachraza mishmeu ve'irau nafka. Rabbi Meir says that there are 3 elements in the pasuk. V'chol Yisrael yishmeu ve'irau ve'lo yosifu. Yishmeu ve'irau is for they should hear and they should tremble. That is for hachrazah that you have to announce it. Velo yosifu. Lo yosifu is not just telling you that they will automatically never do that, as a follow-up with the Yishmeu Ve'irau, but it's actually a commandment. Velo yosifu. You know why I want them to be hearing it? Because I don't want this to happen. Hashem says, Lo yosifu la'asot. They should not add to do this. So therefore, Rabbi Meir now has his azhara, and now we know Rabbi Meir, who learns that you have two sets of punishments, is because you have lo ta'aneh bera'acha et shakir, and you also have the edim zomemin, and of course, Chachamim say, and therefore we have only one punishment. That brings us to the Mishnah on top of Hey Amud Aleph. Be'ezrat Hashem will start the next sugya that is to come.